Welcome to the Crawcast. I'm your host, George Krasek, and this is what happened in Week 4 of the NFL season. And if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button like it owes you money. Now let's get started. The first game was the Seattle Seahawks versus the Arizona Cardinals, and the Seahawks won 23-20. So the Seahawks won 23-20. The Seahawks leading passer is Sam Darnold, who had 242 yards and a touchdown. Their leading rusher was Kenneth Walker, who had 81 rushing yards. And their leading receiver was Jackson Smith-Njigba, who had 79 receiving yards. And for the Cardinals, their leading passer was Kyler Murray, who had 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Their leading rusher was Kyler Murray, who had 41 rushing yards, and their leading receiver was Marvin Harrison, who had 66 receiving yards and a touchdown. So this game really felt like domination for almost the entire game by the Seahawks on the Cardinals. And man, it felt like Marvin Harrison really saved himself at the end. So we'll break this down. Marvin Harrison struggled a lot during this game. His first pass, the 2 interceptions were kind of on his fault. The first one I really don't think so, but so what happened is Kyler Murray was throwing to Marvin Harrison his first ball, and Marvin Harrison was running a crosser, and then he just stopped in the middle of his route. I don't know why, he just stopped. And then that led to it getting intercepted. Honestly, I thought it was a pretty bad ball, so I think it probably gets intercepted anyways, but it was just weird they stopped. And then the Seahawks defender did a stupid play where he ran to his own guy, fumbled the ball, and then the intercepted ball got fumbled and the Cardinals recovered. So the Cardinals technically didn't lose possession. And then the second one was purely Marvin Harrison's fault, where he was throwing the ball and he just juggled it and it got intercepted. And then he was just running wrong routes, where there's so many times where Kyler Murray was expecting an out route from him and he ran a streak, and just overall, just Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison have been off all season, and this game really showed it. And then the second half, they turned it on and they played well, and Marvin Harrison got a really nice touchdown. And at the end of the touchdown, he kind of just prayed because, like, I think, granted, he was the 4th overall pick, so you can't, like, cut him, and it feels like you really can't bench him. But I feel like you need to have a serious conversation. He's kind of hurting the team now more than he's helping it with his wrong routes run and his drop passes, and kind of like Quentin Johnston, where, like, Quentin Johnston, first round pick a year ago, where he was so terrible that you're like, I don't even know if you can justify him being on the team anymore. And that's how Marvin Harrison's first few games this season were shaping up. But yeah, definitely turned that around. And then Seahawks, Sam Darnold looked really good. He played really great. He had almost all his balls were perfect, dealt with a couple of bad drops. And then, yeah, Sam Darnold, but probably his best game. Last week he played well too, but probably his best game of the year, this game. And then the Cardinals defense, that's kind of worrying to me. They struggled, and they've been kind of struggling all season, even against bad teams like the Saints and Panthers. I definitely expected way more out of the Cardinals defense, and they just need to play better. So overall, Seahawks won. You got to be happy about that. And Cardinals, there's still a lot of cause for concern. Luckily, Marvin Harrison kind of turned things around at the end there. The next game is the Minnesota Vikings versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers won 24-21. So the Steelers won 24-21. The Steelers' leading passer was Aaron Rodgers, who threw for 200 yards and a touchdown. Their leading rusher was Kenneth Gainwell, who had 99 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. And their leading receiver was DK Metcalf, who had 126 yards and a touchdown. And for the Vikings, their leading passer was Carson Wentz, who had 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Their leading rusher was Jordan Mason, who had 57 rushing yards. And their leading receiver was Justin Jefferson, who had 126 receiving yards. So this game actually quite surprised me because if you look at the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers has been struggling with pressure. The Steelers' offensive line is terrible, and Aaron Rodgers can't move like he used to, and so when he gets pressured, he struggles. And the Vikings, their defense was really great at generating pressure on all the quarterbacks they played so far. So Aaron Rodgers, they just beat him with the quick game. Plain and simple, Aaron Rodgers got the ball out immediately, so he couldn't be affected by pressure, and he played really good. He really never made a bad decision. Like, he played really well. Like, other than his 4 touchdown performance in week 1, this might have been his second best game, where he just played really well against a very good defense. They had a good game plan going, and this is the first time the Steelers' defense really exceptionalized and played to their strengths. Towards the end, the Vikings kind of came back, and I felt like the Steelers kind of let their foot off the gas a little bit. But overall, the Steelers deserve a lot of credit here. Their defense is finally back on track. Maybe it could be Carson Wentz because Carson Wentz isn't the greatest quarterback, but I don't think Carson Wentz was necessarily that bad. But overall, a lot of credit for the Steelers defense, a lot of credit from the Steelers offense. They played really, really great. And then the Vikings, they played fine. They especially turned it on in the second half, but overall the Vikings just didn't really have that good a performance. Their defense was a letdown, but overall I think this is more the Steelers being good than the Vikings being bad. The next game is the Washington Commanders versus the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons won 34-27. So the Falcons won 34-27. The Falcons' leading passer is Michael Penix Jr., who had 313 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Their leading rusher is Bijan Robinson, who had 75 rushing yards and a touchdown. And their leading receiver was Drake London, who had 110 yards and a touchdown. And for the Commanders, their leading passer is Marcus Mariota, who had 156 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Their leading rusher was Chris Rodriguez, who had 59 rushing yards, and their leading receiver was Deebo Samuel, who had 72 receiving yards and a touchdown. So to me, this is the biggest shocker of the weekend, is the Falcons beating the Commanders, because the Falcons, their offense was so terrible, they lost to the Panthers. They scored 0 on the Panthers, and I think the Panthers are probably the worst team in football. And so, and that wasn't even credit to the Panthers offense, because the Panthers offense really didn't play that good. It's just that Michael Penix Jr. and the Falcons offense played so unbelievably horrible that they just played bad. And so they played extremely well against the Commanders, who have a pretty decent defense. And so this has shocked me so much. Obviously, the entire offense is run through Bijan Robinson. When he's on, the Falcons have a good shot at winning, and when he's off, then the Falcons collapse a little bit. But Michael Penix Jr., other than one bad interception, he deserves credit too. He played extremely, extremely well. And so the Falcons, you got to at least have promise, because I did talk about how last week and in my predictions video where you might have to have a conversation about Michael Penix Jr., where your defense is very good and your division is very weak to the point where you have a shot at making the playoffs. So do you maybe say, hey, let's give Kirk Cousins a shot because he can't play that much worse than Michael Penix Jr.? And Michael Penix Jr. played really, really great. And then for the Commanders, this is worrying about their defense, because their defense has been their strong suit. Jaden Daniels didn't really play that great in the 2 games he played in. Last week, Marcus Mariota played great. This week, Marcus Mariota didn't play that great. So overall, their strong point in the first 4 weeks has been their defense. And now this is the first game their defense really let them down and really played poorly. And so maybe this could be a one-off. Maybe there's some cracks showing in the Commanders' defense. But I'd be really concerned if you're the Commanders. Then you got to be extremely happy if you're the Falcons. The next game is the Los Angeles Chargers versus the New York Giants, and the Giants won 21-18. So the Giants won 21-18. The Giants' leading passer was Jackson Dart, who had 111 yards and a touchdown. Their leading rusher was Cam Skadabo, who had 79 rushing yards, and their leading receiver is Darius Slayton, who had 44 receiving yards. And for the Chargers, their leading passer was Justin Herbert, who had 203 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Their leading rusher was Marion Hampton, who had 128 yards and a touchdown, and their leading receiver was Quentin Johnston, who had 98 receiving yards and a touchdown. So the big story in this game is Malik Nabers got injured, tore his ACL, and is done for the year. I have Malik Nabers in fantasy. We had an auction draft, and so he was the most expensive player on my team. I feel like we need to start a support group now of people who had Malik Nabers in fantasy and are screwed, because I am still undefeated. I am 4-0, but I don't have my best player anymore, so this is very scary. And so, like I said, we need to start a support group, but I am wondering if there's going to have conversations about getting turf, because I saw a lot of people talk about the big injuries at MetLife Stadium, where it's like Aaron Rodgers, Nick Bosa, guys like that just keep getting injured, and now Malik Nabers. But overall, I've seen some studies that say it doesn't make a difference, and it could just be unlucky coincidences, but those are some heck of a coincidences, so I don't know. But that's the big news. Malik Nabers done for the year. And then the Giants won, and I predicted this as my upset of the week. I thought the Giants were going to win. And the reason I said that is because the Giants' defense isn't that bad. Other than that one Cowboys game, which the Cowboys have an absolutely elite offense, the Giants' defense has played amazing. And so I think you have to give the Giants defense a lot of credit. It's just that Russell Wilson has just been playing so unbelievably terrible that you just need someone to play average to below average to make it a competitive game. And that's what Jackson Dart did. Like, Jackson Dart didn't play particularly well, But he didn't play poorly either. He just let the defense carry him, and they played well. And then Justin Herbert, I get it. Giants defense is good, but Justin Herbert, the Chargers, they just got to play better, plain and simple. Overall, I don't think this will affect too much of the trajectory of each team because I don't see the Giants making the playoffs, and I still think the Chargers are one of the best teams in the NFL. I just think it was kind of poor matchups because the Chargers' offensive line is also very injured. The next game is the Tennessee Titans versus the Houston Texans, and the Texans won 26-0. So the Texans won 26-0. The Texans' leading passer was C.J. Stroud, who had 233 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher was Jarquavius Marks, who had 69 rushing yards and a touchdown, and their leading receiver was Nico Collins, who had 79 receiving yards. For the Titans, their leading passer was Cam Ward, who had 108 yards and an interception. Their leading rusher was Tony Pollard, who had 64 rushing yards, and their leading receiver was Alec Ayamanor, who had 44 receiving yards. I hate to say it, there's not much to say on this game. The Texans should have won. The Titans are the worst team in the NFL. I know there's talks about is it the Saints? Is it the Panthers? Is it the Jets? Is it the Titans? I think it's the Titans. I'll debate the Panthers, but overall I think it's the Titans are the worst team in the NFL. And so the Texans, at least you're starting to get back on track. It's just tough because the Texans have been playing so horrible, and then they beat up the worst team in the NFL. So what do I got from that? It's the Texans might be a little bit better because they beat a terrible team, but then the Titans are just horrible. There's no two ways to say about it. Worst team in the NFL. So the Texans should have won this game, and it should have been like this. And again, I got nothing. I don't think this. If you had a bad opinion on the Texans, I don't think this improves it too much. And then if you had a good opinion on the Titans, I don't think this changes much because, again, I don't think we really learned anything from either team from this game. Both teams are not very good, and the Texans are significantly better than the Titans. The next game is the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Eagles won 31-25. So the Eagles won 31-25. The Eagles' leading passer was Jalen Hurts, who had 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher was Jalen Hurts, who had 62 rushing yards, and their leading receiver is Dallas Goedert, who had 37 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. And for the Buccaneers, their leading passer was Baker Mayfield, who had 289 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Their leading rusher was Bucky Irvin, who had 63 rushing yards. And their leading receiver is Bucky Irving, who had 102 receiving yards and a touchdown. So in this game, the Buccaneers kind of felt like they outplayed the Eagles. The Eagles really didn't play that well. Especially in the second half, if you look at Jalen Hurts, he went 0 for 8 and had 0 passing yards in the second half. And then Baker Mayfield just kind of threw one horrible interception, and that sealed the game. I don't know what much to say. It's the Eagles this year seem like the Chiefs last year, where you look at the Chiefs last year, and everyone kept saying, this is not a good football team. They are not impressive. Patrick Mahomes isn't playing that great. The defense is carrying them. And overall, they're just not that great of a football team, but they keep barely winning somehow. That's how the Eagles feel right now. It's they keep barely winning, and almost all their games, against the Cowboys, that was very close. They could have lost that one. They beat the Rams by a blocked field goal, which, again, I feel like blocked field goals are more luck than skill. And then they barely won here by an interception, bad interception by Baker Mayfield. They keep finding ways to win, and so I don't know what to say about that. It's, come playoff time, come crunch time, with the Chiefs, where once you start going against these super elite, super good teams, I think the Eagles have a high chance of falling apart. But overall, they just won. Their defense played fairly decent. Jalen Hurts didn't play well. Saquon Barkley didn't play well, but they just won, plain and simple. And so that's all I gotta say about that. Is I don't think the Eagles are particularly a good team, and I don't think they're gonna make it far this year. I do think they'll make the playoffs, but I don't think they'll make it particularly far. But they just keep finding ways to win, like the Chiefs last year. The next game is the Carolina Panthers versus the New England Patriots, and the Patriots won 42-13. So the next game is the New England Patriots versus the Carolina Panthers, and the Patriots won 42-13. The Patriots' leading passer was Drake May, who had 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher was Ramondre Stevenson, who had 38 rushing yards. And their leading receiver was Stephon Diggs, who had 101 receiving yards. For the Panthers, their leading passer was Bryce Young, who had 150 yards and a touchdown. Their leading rusher was Chuba Hubbard, who had 49 rushing yards, and their leading receiver was Ted McMillan, who had 62 receiving yards. So this is kind of a lot like what I said about the Texans game, where the Patriots, they're a halfway decent team, and the Panthers are a bad team. So this kind of went exactly how it should and kind of what I predicted, where the Patriots, at least their offense is finally getting together and showing that they can play super well and going really well. But other than that, it's like the Patriots or the Panthers are terrible. The Patriots should be able to beat up on them, and it's kind of embarrassing if they couldn't have because the Panthers are that bad of a team. They have no offense. Their defense is just okay, and so again, the Patriots showed a lot. And then the Panthers, they just need better weapons. Their offensive line is terrible. Ted McMillan is the only person on the team that's a weapon for Bryce Young. They had Jalen Cocker, but he's on IR with a hamstring injury, and just overall, the Panthers are just a disaster. Like, at least the Titans, you can say rookie quarterback, and you can have that as an excuse, but the Panthers, they're just a disaster. And so, no way, two ways about it. At least the Patriots are finally looking good and getting their offense together, but again, it was against the Panthers, and this kind of should have happened. The next game is the New Orleans Saints versus the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills won 31-19. So the Bills won 31-19. The Bills' leading passer was Josh Allen, who had 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Their leading rusher was James Cook, who had 117 yards and a touchdown. And their leading receiver was Khalil Shakir, who had 69 receiving yards and a touchdown. And for the Saints, their leading passer was Spencer Rattler, who had 126 yards and a touchdown. Their leading rusher was Alvin Kamara, who had 70 rushing yards. And their leading receiver was Rashid Shaheed, who had 47 receiving yards. So, let me know if you've heard this one before. It's a bad team kind of beating up on a good team. Or, I'm sorry, a good team beating up on a bad team. And so, overall, the Bills kind of did what they should have. Like, they should have won this game, plain and simple. The Saints played better than I thought they were, and overall, Spencer Rattler has been playing much better than I expected. Like, I definitely think he's earned a spot as a low-end starting quarterback and a high-end backup. This year, despite being on a terrible team, he's actually played pretty well. Not particularly well in this game, but overall, he's played decently well. And so Josh Allen played great, James Cook played great, and then the Saints just aren't that good. They're missing quite a few key pieces, but if they somehow win a few games and don't have the top overall pick, I think there's at least a small chance they can build around Spencer Rattler. Like, I don't think that's an impossibility because Spencer Rattler has been playing fine in a horrible team. So that's kind of all I got to say about it. A good team beat up on a bad team, plain and simple. The next game is the Cleveland Browns versus the Detroit Lions, and the Lions won 34-10. So the Lions won 34-10. The Lions' leading passer was Jared Goff, who had 168 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Their leading rusher was Jahmyr Gibbs, who had 91 rushing yards and a touchdown. And their leading receiver was Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had 70 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. For the Browns, their leading passer was Joe Flacco, who had 184 yards and 2 interceptions. Their leading rusher was Quinshon Judkins, who had 82 rushing yards and a touchdown. And their leading receiver was Isaiah Bond, who had 58 receiving yards. So in this game, first off, I just want to say, Joe Flacco's not it. He had 2 bad interceptions. The first one, a lot of people are talking about how they didn't know what happened on the play. I think I do. Where he just kind of threw it up to nobody, and then Kirby Joseph picked it off on the sidelines. Well, what happened is, I think he was trying to throw the ball away, and then just underthrew the throwaway, and that allowed Kirby Joseph to pick it off. That's what I think what happened. And then, overall, I think the Browns' defense largely held up pretty well. There was a kick return touchdown, and it was a close game for almost the entire game until right at the end the Lions kind of pulled away. But overall, the Browns' defense is good, and they largely played well against the Lions. I don't think the Lions looked particularly impressive in this game until kind of right at the end. Whereas the Browns' offense is so inept and incapable and not good at all whatsoever. This is how I feel about the Browns. Is if you remember in 2015, Peyton Manning was like the worst quarterback in football. And the Broncos, led by their strong defense, I believe had the best record in the NFL as the number 1 seed and went on to win the Super Bowl. I think the Browns can be like that. They just need someone to play a little bit more competent than Joe Flacco. Kind of like I said about the Giants, where they have a decent defense, where as if the Browns just have a decent quarterback, just someone who's average, someone who just doesn't make the stupid, incompetent plays, then they can definitely be a playoff team. I'm not saying Dylan Gabriel or Shadir Sanders, they can play that much better, but at some point I think you have to give them a shot, because it's like you can win these games, and you are in these games pretty close till right at the end, and then all of a sudden they just pull away because your offense cannot do anything because the offense is that bad. Like, at least Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel can't play much worse than Joe Flacco. So I would give Dylan Gabriel a shot because one of two things happen. Either he plays well and maybe you start winning games and then maybe you get a chance at making the playoffs being carried by your strong defense. Or if he still sucks, then you have a top draft pick to try to get get a top quarterback next year. So overall, just not very good by. I don't think either team was that impressive, but overall, the Browns defense played well, and their offense is just incompetent, and that's it, plain and simple. The defense just or the Browns offense just needs to play better, plain and simple. And I think it's time to move on from Joe Flacco. The next game is the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the San Francisco 49ers, and the Jaguars won 26-21. So the Jaguars won 26-21. The Jaguars' leading passer was Trevor Lawrence, who had 174 yards and 1 touchdown. Their leading rusher was Travis Etienne, who had 124 yards and a touchdown. And their leading receiver was Brian Thomas, who had 49 receiving yards. For the 49ers, their leading passer was Brock Purdy, who had 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Their leading rusher was Christian McCaffrey, who had 49 rushing yards, and their leading receiver was Christian McCaffrey, who had 92 receiving yards and a touchdown. So in this game, I don't think neither team really played particularly great. The Jaguars' defense, though, really stepped up and played well. And throughout most of the game, towards the end, Brock Purdy started playing a little bit better, but throughout most of the game, Brock Purdy struggled, and then it came out afterwards that he's injured. And so I don't know if he's going to miss more games, but Mac Jones definitely did play a little bit better. And then Christian McCaffrey, man, I know there's always injury concerns with him, but he's just an elite player. He's so good and played extremely, extremely well. And then the Jaguars, this is a question for the 49ers, in my opinion, because I still don't really believe in the Jaguars. I don't think they're particularly that great. I think their defense is much better than the offense, and I don't really believe in Trevor Lawrence that much. But they just played really, really well, and plain and simple, and the 49ers didn't. And it was kind of weird as well. There was the controversy of Liam Cohen and Robert Saleh of the 49ers defensive coordinator versus the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach, where Robert Saleh accused Liam Cohen of sign stealing, but not like illegal sign stealing, just saying, okay, if like Fred Warner, for example, makes a symbol with his hands, then that's telling the defense to go into like, let's just say a cover 2. And so that makes you wonder, it's like, okay, they're good at reading and picking up on these signals. It's not illegal. And also, Robert Saleh never accused them of doing anything illegal. They just said, oh, they're just doing this and they're good at it. So, number one, it confused me why Robert Saleh would even feel the need to bring that up. Probably shouldn't have said anything. And then also it confused me, why would Liam Cohen be angry over that? Because, again, they're not really being accused of cheating. They're just kind of being accused of strategizing and using and being good at picking up on the tools given to them. So that was just very weird to me. So Jaguars, they won. Good for them. I don't think this is really a playoff team, even though they are in a poor division. And then the 49ers, man, the injury bugs just keep on hitting. Brock Purdy's injured again, but at least Mac Jones played decent. And I don't know how much better the 49ers can do with all these injuries. It's going to be tough for them to win too many more games. The next game is the Indianapolis Colts versus the Los Angeles Rams, and the Rams won 27-20. So the Rams won 27-20. The Rams' leading passer was Matthew Stafford, who threw for 375 yards and 3 touchdowns. Their leading rusher was Kyren Williams, who threw for 77 yards, or who rushed for 77 yards. And their leading receiver was Puka Nacua, who had 170 yards and a touchdown. For the Colts, their leading passer was Daniel Jones, who threw for 262 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Their leading rusher was Jonathan Taylor, who had 76 receiving yards. And their leading receiver was Adine Mitchell, who had 96 receiving yards. So Adine Mitchell needs to start playing better. Like, this is his game so let me explain to you what happened. So he cost them 2 touchdowns. The first touchdown was the second one I'm not really blaming him on, where Jonathan Taylor had a 54-yard rushing touchdown, and that was negated by a holding penalty. That one I don't blame him for, because he tried his best and was really trying to get his guy to blocking his guy, and maybe that guy would have stopped the touchdown. So that one I don't blame him too much for. But so he was running for a big touchdown, and right when he got to the goal line, he was he was starting to celebrate, and he dropped the ball while trying to celebrate. Went for a touchdown back, and the Rams got the ball. I don't understand how this happens. This is literally the dumbest play in football. Like, I was there when everyone saw Deshaun Jackson do it and laugh at him and be like, oh my God, what an idiot of Deshaun Jackson dropping the ball before he scored. I don't know how this keeps happening. Like, literally everyone should have saw Deshaun Jackson, said, okay, this is literally like the dumbest person on planet Earth, and never do it ever again. Like, to me, this should be the biggest punishment. Like, I don't care what, like, I don't know if it's like an immediate cut from the team or like $1 million fine or maybe a 1 game suspension. But to me, this is like the biggest era of football or error of football. Like, I don't even understand how you do it. Just run the extra like 2 yards and then get the touchdown. And then you can do whatever celebration you want. Just run the extra 2 yards. Like, this is the most unforgivable, stupid play in football. Like, I don't even understand how it keeps happening. Like, it happened like 3 times last year. And I just, like, I don't get it. Like, there literally needs to be some huge punishment from the team to any player this happens with. Like, I don't even care who it is. It can be someone as big as, like, Josh Allen, or as small as, like, the backup kicker. Like, whoever does this just needs to get the biggest punishment possible. Like, this makes no sense to me. So, the Rams. Matthew Stafford looked fantastic. The Rams looked really, really good. And then the Colts got to be a bit happy because even though Daniel Jones didn't look great, I think his MVP run is finally coming to an end, and we're kind of seeing the normal Daniel Jones back. At least you hung tight with the Rams, who are a very, very good football team. And so I think that gives you a lot of promise. But overall, the Rams look great. Colts, they're fine, and I just can't believe dropping the ball in the goal. Like I don't even want to talk about this game anymore because that like makes me so angry and frustrates me so much because I don't even know how you can conceivably do that. Like literally, if I was a coach, just say, do not even think about celebrating until you're halfway into the end zone. Get a couple of yards into the end zone. Don't even think about celebrating. This is like I said, the most unforgivable, stupid, sin in football. And again, everyone should have saw Deshaun Jackson do it once, and it should have never happened ever again. Period. It just makes zero sense. The next game is the Chicago Bears versus the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Bears won 25-24. So the Bears won 25-24. The Bears' leading passer was Caleb Williams, who had 212 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Their leading rusher was DeAndre Swift, who had 38 rushing yards and a touchdown. And their leading receiver was Rome Odunze, who had 69 receiving yards and a touchdown. For the Raiders, their leading passer is Geno Smith, who had 117 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Their leading rusher is Ashton Jeanty, who had 138 yards and a touchdown. And their leading receiver is Brock Bowers, who had 46 receiving yards. So in this game, I thought it was kind of looking like what the Bears have been continuously doing, where they look really great in like the first quarter, and then they completely collapse after that. Because that's what this game largely was, is them collapsing. Other than the Cowboys game, that's how they've been in every single one of their games. It's just looking so horrible. Like, looking great at the start and then collapsing. But they survived. They won by a blocked field goal, and overall looked fairly decent. And then the Raiders. I think it might be time to talk about benching Geno Smith. Week 1, he looked fairly decent, but other than that, he really hasn't played that well this year. And it's just tough because he basically had, 2 good years with the Seahawks, and then other than those 2 good years, his career, he's been terrible, and now he's reverting back to being terrible. I understand the offensive line isn't great, but overall, just worries for the Raiders. But Ashton Jeanty looked really good. So that's promising because I think everyone's waiting where everyone understands he's he's behind a horrible offensive line, but usually a horrible offensive line, you'll see some flashes of goodness off a horrible offensive line, and so far we just never seen any of those flashes. And then there it is today. We finally saw a decent game by Ashton Jeanty that shows he can be a decent running back in this league and be worth his high overall pick. So other than that, I feel like there's not much to say about this game. Neither team looked particularly amazing. They both look good in spurts, and overall the Bears just got the win. The next game is the Baltimore Ravens versus the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs won 37-20. So the Chiefs won 37-20. The Chiefs' leading passer was Patrick Mahomes, who threw for 270 yards and 4 touchdowns. Their leading rusher was Xavier Worthy, who had 38 rushing yards. And their leading receiver was Xavier Worthy, who had 83 receiving yards. For the Ravens, their leading passer was Lamar Jackson, who had 147 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Their leading rusher was Justice Hill, who had 76 rushing yards and a touchdown. And their leading receiver was Zay Flowers, who had 74 receiving yards. So in this game, it was just domination by the Chiefs all the way through. Plain and simple. Lamar Jackson did not look good, and Patrick Mahomes looked really good. And this is kind of weird because, and also it was weird. So the Ravens benched Lamar Jackson a little over halfway through the third quarter. Like, I'm not saying they're going to win, and there's a low probability of them coming back, but there's still plenty of time to try to come back. And then they said it was a hamstring injury, but I don't see anyone taking that seriously. So I just thought it was weird. Like, I'm wondering, was that Lamar's choice saying, like, oh, I'm not playing well and I'm so frustrated, so I'm taking myself out of the game early? Or if that was John Harbaugh's decision where he's like, I'm just going to take Lamar out and we're giving up on this game, which, again, is weird because, again, even though they're probably going to lose, they still had a shot at coming back. And so this is something that I've been thinking about. And I always hate when people use the term clutch because clutch isn't a statistic. It's not like an objective measure. But now I'm starting to believe it a little bit where it's like how I feel is like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson are like polar opposites of each other where it's like Patrick Mahomes, he could play terrible for the first 3 quarters of the game, and then the fourth quarter, he turns it on and plays amazing. And, like, all his best plays come from, like, third down and stuff like that. Whereas Lamar Jackson's the opposite, where it's like, he plays amazing the first 3 quarters of the game, and then the fourth quarter, he, like, falls apart, and all his best plays come in first and second down, and then once you hit, like, third down, he's absolutely terrible. And I don't know, it's just weird, because, like, Patrick Mahomes seems to be like the most clutch quarterback almost in NFL history, and then Lamar Jackson seems to be like the least clutch good quarterback in NFL history. So overall, like the Ravens got shut down, and then Xavier Worthy came back, and it really opened up the Chiefs' offense. It seemed like they were missing him greatly because without him, Travis Kelce is their number one, and Travis Kelce just isn't that number one guy anymore. He just can't do it. And then overall, just the Chiefs played great, their defense played great, and then the Ravens. I get their defense is pretty injured, but their defense has not played well really for at all for most of this year, and they've relied on the offense, and the offense struggled at times. And overall, I'm very concerned about the Ravens. I still think they are good enough to probably be a playoff team, but overall, the Ravens are not looking good, and the Chiefs finally getting back to 2-2 and turning the season around. You beat a decent team in the Ravens, and overall, you gotta be happy because they're only getting healthier because they're gonna get Rashid Rice back in a couple of weeks. You got Xavier Worthy back, so overall, Patrick Mahomes looked great. You gotta be very happy if you're the Chiefs. The next game is the Green Bay Packers versus the Dallas Cowboys, and the Packers and Cowboys tied at 40 apiece. So the Packers and Cowboys tied. The Packers' leading passer was Jordan Love, who threw for 337 yards and 3 touchdowns. Their leading rusher was Josh Jacobs, who had 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. And their leading receiver was Josh Jacobs, who had 71 receiving yards. And for the Cowboys, their leading passer is Dak Prescott, who threw for 319 yards and 3 touchdowns. Their leading rusher was Javonte Williams, who had 85 rushing yards and a touchdown. And their leading receiver is George Pickens, who had 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. So this is an interesting one. So I didn't know if to count as a win or I'm not a win. I didn't know whether to count as a loss or a tie because I did predict the Packers to win, which they did not do. But then in my video, I also said the Packers never lose to the Cowboys, which is also true. The Packers did not lose to the Cowboys. They just did not beat the Cowboys. So in all fairness, I just put it as a tie. If you want me, I can change it to a loss. So my record would be like 41-21 at this time. But I put it as a tie because I think that's fair because you're not just picking teams to win, you're picking teams to lose. And so, I don't know. Overall, I think that's fair enough. So, first off, I just want to say Packers need to fire Rich Bisaccia, their special teams coach. This is getting ridiculous. So, if the Packers didn't have a blocked game-winning field goal, they would have beat the Browns 13-10. If the Packers didn't have a blocked extra point, they would have beaten the Cowboys 38-35. So, if it wasn't to 2 blocked field goals due to incompetence, the Packers would be undefeated right now. So I don't know what Rich Bisaccia adds because he's their special teams head coach and he's came in to bring in a great special teams. Well, they had basically one good year of Keyshawn Nixon on kick returns. Ever since then, their kick returns have been terrible. And then punt returns. Their punt returns have been also been terrible. Special teams. Punting has been fairly decent. And then kicking. It's been absolutely horrible, which I don't necessarily blame him for because I think Anders Carlson and Braden Narvison are both terrible kickers. But overall, Rich Bisaccia just adds nothing to the team. You have these stupid mistakes. Like, to me, I look at blocked field goals as more of luck in terms of one person missed their assignment, and that's both on coaching and the person. So, again, just horrible, horrible, horrible. And then it's kind of interesting for the story of this game because this is what everyone wanted to talk about. Who won the Micah Parsons trade? And if the Packers won, it would have been like, oh, clearly the Packers won the trade because Micah Parsons helped them win. And if the Cowboys won, it would have been like, oh, clearly the Cowboys don't need Micah Parsons to win. And it's because they just won without him. And evidently we got neither. So it was also weird play calling by Matt LaFleur at the end of the game because I fully understand that they're trying to waste as much time as possible just in case they kick the field goal so the Cowboys wouldn't be able to tie it up or go for the win. But the Packers are playing for the tie, which just, it feels weird where they're like, we're comfortable with tying. We don't want to risk losing, so we're not going to try so hard for winning. We're just going to take the tie, which again, just feels so weird. It feels weird. I get it. They're trying to be aggressive, and that's the Cowboys got a forced fumble right at the end of the game, or right at the end of the first half and got a touchdown. So I get it. They're scared about being aggressive, but that's something I noticed about Matt LaFleur. He tends to overcorrect. Like, for example, if Jordan Love throws a bad interception, it's like, okay, we're only running the ball. Or if, like, Josh Jacobs has a bad fumble, okay, we're only passing now. Like, he tends to overcorrect where he started being really aggressive, and then after being really aggressive and it failed, he's like, okay, we're not being aggressive at all whatsoever. So, in terms of this game, the Cowboys showed a good blueprint to beat the Packers. Like, the Lions tried this, where the Packers' pass rush is still elite. They still have a really great pass rush. But here's the thing, that opens the game to the quick game, where you're going to have a lot of screens, a lot of short passes, and the Packers' corners are not good enough to defend the short passes. So that's why if you look at the Lions, they tried this, and it failed because that's why you had, like, who is it? Jahmyr Gibbs had, like, 11 receptions for, like, 30 yards because they had the short passing game, which worked, and then the Packers would clean up, make the tackle, and it'd be for no game. And now the Packers just kept missing tackles, and so that's how they got exploited. It was the short passing game because people are scared of the pass rush, and it worked. Their cornerbacks are not good enough to help with the short game, and there's just a lot of missed tackles, plain and simple. And then the Cowboys, their offense is elite even without CeeDee Lamb. This is why I say I think they made the mistake of trading Micah Parsons because Micah Parsons is an elite defensive player, and they need someone like that on their defense. Their defense is absolutely terrible. But if you look at every single game they played so far, Dak Prescott has looked great. Their offense has looked really, really good, other than the one Bears game. Their offense has looked really good, and that's, I think, I give them a little bit of a pass because CeeDee Lamb got injured early, and they kind of panicked and didn't really have a plan to replace him. But overall, the Cowboys' offense is elite, and I think Dak does deserve more credit. Like, for example, I got a lot of hate for it for 2 years ago, where I didn't think Lamar Jackson deserved the MVP 2 years ago. I think it should have gone for Dak Prescott, and that was my opinion on it. And overall, just Cowboys' offense good, defense terrible, and they could use a guy like Micah Parsons. And then the Packers, their offense played really, really well, but it was against a terrible Cowboys team, so it's just tough. Like, the big thing about this is the Packers defense. It just needs to play better, stop missing so many tackles, and overall stop getting exploited by the quick passing game. And then both offenses played really well, and again, this is how I feel about overtime. I hate the new rules. This is how it should be. Just flip it back to the old rules where you couldn't have ties, where first possession, if they score a touchdown, they win. If they get a field goal, then the other team has a shot at getting a touchdown or a field goal. And then at sudden death, if you both get a field goal, then you go sudden death until another team until another team scores. And that's how it used to be. No ties. And that's the way I prefer it. Because it was funny, the announcers are complaining, oh, we have these new overtime rules to make it fair. And then they start talking about, well, the Packers are such an advantage because since they know the Cowboys will either score a touchdown, field goal, or not score, they know what they need to do. And so it's like, okay, so now you're calling these overtime rules unfair. So that's just kind of stupid to me. Overall, just bad. It was a bad defensive performance, bad special teams performance, and again, it wasn't for special teams mistakes, the Packers would be 4-0 right now. And I like the old overtime rules because defense matters. If your defense is good and you stop the opposing team's offense, then you just kick the field goal for the win, and it's easier to get a field goal than a touchdown. And then on the flip side, if you have a good offense, then you just go score a touchdown to win. Again, you need to have good stuff both sides of the ball. So I hate the new overtime rules. That's just my opinion. I know I'm in the minority on that, but overall, that's my opinion. The next game is the New York Jets versus the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins won 27-21. So the Dolphins won 27-21. The Dolphins' leading passer was Tua, who had 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher was Devon Achane, who had 99 rushing yards and a touchdown, and their leading receiver was Tyreek Hill, who had 67 receiving yards. For the Jets, their leading passer was Justin Fields, who had 226 yards and a touchdown. Their leading rusher was Breece Hall, who had 81 rushing yards. And their leading passer was Garrett Wilson, their leading receiver was Garrett Wilson, who had 82 receiving yards and a touchdown. So in this game, the Dolphins got up early and were playing really, really well. And then towards the end, Justin Fields started to turn it on and start playing better and came back. And overall, the Dolphins are probably just a better team. I told you, I do not like Aaron Glenn as a defensive coordinator. I just don't think he's a very good defensive mind. I think he's a great locker room leader and a great, motivator. I just don't think he's a great defensive coordinator. And so the big story of this game is Tyreek Hill got injured. They say he dislocated his knee, and then I don't know if more happened, but it was a really nasty injury, and it looked absolutely horrible. I think he's probably done for the year, how horrible it looked, but who knows. And then it's kind of like this. Neither of these teams are that great. Neither of these teams are probably going to make the playoffs, but the Dolphins needed this win because Mike McDaniel's trying to save his job, plain and simple. And Aaron Glenn could have lost 70-0 and he would have been safe because I don't think you should fire first-year head coaches. Whereas Mike McDaniel, if they would have lost 70-0, he would have been gone the next day. So Mike McDaniel lives on at least another couple of weeks probably. Tua looked fine. Their defense looked fine until the end. Overall, these teams just kind of played average, and neither the team's that great. Garrett Wilson made an amazing catch right at the end there, and just overall, Garrett Wilson's a stud. Breece Hall also, or not Breece Hall, Braylon Allen also got injured. Overall, not much happened in this game. The final game of the week is the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos won 28-3. So the Broncos won 28-3. The Broncos' leading passer was Bo Nix, who threw for 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Their leading rusher was J.K. Dobbins, who had 101 rushing yards. And their leading receiver was Courtland Sutton, who had 81 receiving yards and a touchdown. For the Bengals, their leading passer was Jake Browning, who had 125 yards. Their leading rusher was Chase Brown, who had 40 rushing yards. And their leading receiver was T. Higgins, who had 32 receiving yards. Again, another boring game. Bo Nix looked fairly decent. He definitely looked better, and he deserves credit for that. J.K. Dobbins looked absolutely fantastic. I was kind of surprised the Chargers let him go, but also he is very, very injury prone, so it's kind of understandable. But J.K. Dobbins is a really, really good running back, and I'm happy for him revitalizing his career. And then the Bengals, they simply cannot live on with Jake Browning at their quarterback. Trade for anybody. Trade for Jameis Winston. Trade for I don't know. I think Jameis Winston probably the best shot. I get their offensive line isn't very good, and they need someone like Joe Burrow, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, to try to make up for that horrible offensive line and their not very good defense. But anybody but Jake Browning, you can't do much worse than Jake Browning. So just try to trade for anybody if you want to try to save the season and not just call it quits. So that's what happened week 4 of the NFL season. Also, I want to share some breaking news is Bad Bunny has been announced to be the halftime performer at the next Super Bowl. I don't really care. I'm gonna be honest. I almost always listen to country music, so that the last time the Super Bowl was for me was 1994, if I remember correctly. So a lot of the new stuff just isn't for me. But it's very weird having someone that doesn't speak English do the halftime show. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't heard of Bad Bunny. I know he did a couple of matches for WWE, so I've heard of him, but I've never actually heard one of his songs or really seen one of his matches or anything like that. So again, it's just weird. because I'm not going to know any of the songs and I'm not going to be able to sing along to it. I don't think anyone's going to be able to sing along because I do speak a little bit of Spanish, but not enough to know like a full length Bad Bunny song. It's just so weird. It kind of makes no sense. And he also said he wasn't performing in the U.S. because he doesn't like Trump deporting violent illegal aliens. And so that's fine if he wants to do that. Then stick to your morals. That's what I don't like is people act all preachy, and then as soon as it's time to make a big thing of money, then he does it. Like the halftime show, the performers don't really make any money at all. What they do is they perform. It's the most watched event of each year, and so maybe if you haven't heard of Bad Bunny before, you listen to one of his songs, like it, and then you go to his concert or go to buy one of his songs on like Apple Music and stuff like that, and he gets paid that way. So that's why performers do it. But just stick to your morals. That's what bothers me is when people want to act like all holier than thou, and then as soon as it comes time to make money, they're like, nope, nope, no morals whatsoever. Like that's what happened when all these WWE wrestlers are complaining about wrestling in Saudi Arabia. They were like, oh, Saudi Arabia is such a terrible country. We're not going to wrestle there. Oh, now Saudi Arabia is offering me a big paycheck. I will for sure be there and be at every single show in Saudi Arabia because of that. So again, that's just my big issue. As again, the halftime show's never really for me. That's usually when I go to the bathroom or eat some snacks or something like that. But overall, it's just weird to me not having someone play English, and I'm still waiting for the country. It's been 30 years. I'm waiting for a country music person to return. Like you have Hank Williams Jr., who did the Monday Night Football theme forever, or Carrie Underwood, who does the Sunday Night Football theme, or Chris Stapleton, who also does the Monday Night Football theme now. So I don't know. You have some options. Like I said, it's just weird to me. It's just weird. So let me know your thoughts and comments below. What games you like, what players you like. If you like this type of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button like it owes you money, and I'll see you on the next one.